The fluorescent lights buzzed quietly in the empty hallways of Meridian Research Facility. At 2 a.m., most of the staff had gone home, leaving only the night shift workers to monitor the mysterious specimens kept behind thick glass walls. Among them was Dr. Sarah Chen, a 32-year-old xenobiologist who preferred the quiet of night shifts to the busy chaos of daytime work. Sarah walked down the corridor, her footsteps echoing against the sterile white walls. Her tablet showed normal readings for most specimens, but something caught her attention when she reached Subject Lambda 7's containment unit. The creature's vital signs were elevated, showing signs of distress. Unlike the other creatures in the facility, Lambda 7 was different. Sarah had started thinking of the alien as female, had beautiful iridescent wings folded against her back and skin that seemed to shimmer with a soft purple glow. The alien was about the size of a human child, with large, expressive eyes that followed Sarah whenever she entered the room. As Sarah approached the glass, she heard it again. The sound that had been haunting her for weeks. A cry that was neither human nor animal, but filled with such sadness that it made her heart ache. The other night shift workers had learned to ignore these sounds, saying it was just the creature's natural vocalization. But Sarah knew better. "Hey there," she whispered, placing her hand against the glass. To her surprise, Lambda 7 moved closer, pressing what appeared to be her hand against the other side. The alien's eyes met hers, and for a moment, Sarah felt dizzy. A flash of images filled her mind. Stars, crystal cities, and the feeling of flying through clouds. Sarah stepped back, her heart racing. This wasn't the first time she'd experienced something like this near Lambda 7, but she'd always dismissed it as exhaustion from the long night shifts. This time, though, the images were clearer, more purposeful. Taking a deep breath, she checked to make sure no security cameras were pointed her way. Then she pulled out her personal tablet, not the facility-issued one, and started taking notes. The other scientists claimed the chrysalids were primitive parasites, dangerous creatures that needed to be studied for military purposes. But everything Sarah had observed told a different story. Lambda 7's cage was filled with simple puzzles meant to test basic problem-solving skills. The other scientists laughed at how she seemed to ignore them. But Sarah had noticed that the alien didn't ignore them. She was bored by them. Several times, she'd seen Lambda 7 solve complex puzzles in seconds, then deliberately mess them up when others were watching. The cry came again, softer this time. Sarah looked up from her tablet to see Lambda 7 creating patterns with her bioluminescent skin. The patterns weren't random. They repeated in specific sequences, like a language. "You're trying to talk to me, aren't you?" Sarah whispered. "And I might be the first one actually listening." A wave of warmth and relief washed over her, feelings that didn't seem to be her own. Lambda 7's eyes glowed brighter, and more images flooded Sarah's mind. Young chrysalids learning in groups, sharing knowledge through touch, building amazing structures with their combined abilities. The sound of a door opening somewhere down the hall made Sarah quickly pocket her tablet. She couldn't let anyone know she was communicating with the specimen. They would call her crazy or worse, remove her from the night shift. "I'll be back tomorrow night," she promised quietly, then forced herself to walk away as another cry echoed through the corridor. But this time, the cry sounded different. It held a note of hope. As Sarah continued her rounds, her mind raced with possibilities. Either she was losing her mind from too many night shifts, or she had just made first contact with an intelligent alien species, and if it was the latter, then everything about the Meridian Research Facility's work was wrong. She had to know more. She had to understand. Most importantly, she had to help Lambda 7, no matter the cost. The next 3 nights, Sarah spent every quiet moment with Lambda 7. She had started bringing 2 tablets to work, one for her official duties and one hidden in her lab coat to record their interactions. What she discovered changed everything she thought she knew about the chrysalids. It happened during her usual 3 a.m. check. Sarah was sitting cross-legged on the floor near Lambda 7's enclosure, pretending to do paperwork while actually watching the alien create complex light patterns on her skin. Suddenly, the patterns grew so bright that Sarah had to shield her eyes. When she opened them again, she wasn't in the facility anymore. At least, not in her mind. She stood in a vast crystal city that stretched towards 3 moons in the sky. Around her, creatures like Lambda 7 flew freely, their wings catching starlight. Children played in floating gardens, sharing thoughts and memories through gentle touches of their glowing hands. "This is your home," Sarah whispered, though she knew she was still sitting on the cold floor of the facility. "You're showing me your world." The vision shifted. Now she saw the day everything changed. Strange ships appeared in the sky, human ships. But the chrysalids didn't attack. They sent their children to greet the visitors, believing in peace. Instead of friendship, they found nets and cages. Lambda 7 had been among those children, reaching out with trust only to be taken away. The vision ended abruptly as footsteps echoed down the hall. Sarah quickly wiped tears from her eyes as Dr. Roberts, her supervisor, walked in. "Everything all right, Dr. Chen?" he asked, looking suspiciously at her position on the floor. "Yes, sir," Sarah said, standing up quickly. "Just checking the lower sensors. They've been giving odd readings." Dr. Roberts walked to Lambda 7's enclosure, making notes on his tablet. The alien had retreated to a corner, all signs of intelligence hidden behind what Sarah now recognized as a careful mask. "Fascinating creatures," Dr. Roberts said, but his voice held no warmth. "Did you see the latest weapons test results? The acid they produce could revolutionize our military technology." Sarah felt sick. "Sir, about Lambda 7. Have you noticed any signs of advanced intelligence? The patterns she makes." Dr. Roberts cut her off with a laugh. "Dr. Chen, you're not anthropomorphizing the specimen, are you? These are parasites, dangerous ones. The patterns are just instinctive responses, like a peacock's feathers." "But sir, I've seen." "What you've seen," he said sharply, "is what all new xenobiologists see. You're looking for humanity where there is none. Remember what happened to Dr. Martinez when she started claiming the specimens were sentient?" Sarah remembered. Dr. Martinez had disappeared from the project 6 months ago. The official story was that she had a mental breakdown and quit. Now, Sarah wondered if that was true. "Focus on your work, Dr. Chen," Dr. Roberts said as he walked away. "These creatures are humanity's key to better weapons. Nothing more." After he left, Sarah waited 5 minutes before approaching Lambda 7's enclosure again. The alien moved closer, her large eyes filled with what Sarah now recognized as intelligence and fear. "I'm so sorry," Sarah whispered. "I had no idea what we were doing to your people. But I promise, I'll find a way to help you." A wave of gratitude washed over her, followed by more images. Sarah saw chrysalids in their chrysalis state, sending thoughts across vast distances of space. She understood. Lambda 7 needed to metamorphose to contact her people, but the facility had been keeping her in a juvenile state with drugs, preventing the transformation. Sarah looked at her hidden tablet, then at the security cameras, and made her decision. She wouldn't end up like Dr. Martinez, disappearing quietly. Instead, she would expose the truth, no matter what it cost her. Because now she knew, humanity wasn't studying aliens. They were imprisoning children. Sarah spent the next day gathering evidence. She barely slept, using her off hours to organize the videos and notes she'd taken of Lambda 7. But when she finally walked into Dr. Wilson's office, the head of the facility, her hands were shaking despite her preparation. "Dr. Chen," Wilson said, not looking up from his computer, "I don't remember scheduling a meeting." "Sir, this is important." Sarah placed her tablet on his desk. "I've discovered something about the chrysalids. They're not what we think they are. Lambda 7, subject Lambda 7, has shown clear signs of advanced intelligence." Wilson finally looked up, his face unreadable. "Show me." Sarah played the video she'd recorded. Lambda 7's light patterns, her problem-solving abilities, the way she communicated through images. She's not just intelligent, sir. The chrysalids are an advanced civilization. We're holding their children prisoner. Interesting interpretation, Wilson said, studying the videos. He pressed a button on his desk phone. Security, please come to my office. Sarah's heart dropped. Sir, please, just look at the evidence. We're making a terrible mistake. If we release them, maybe we could have real communication with their species, learn from them instead of. Dr. Chen, Wilson cut her off, standing up. You've been working too many night shifts. These creatures secreted a hallucinogenic compound last month that affected 3 of our staff. Clearly, you've been exposed. That's not true. Sarah backed away as 2 security guards entered the office. I'm thinking clearer than ever. Run the tests yourself. Give Lambda 7 harder puzzles. You'll see. Take Dr. Chen to medical, Wilson ordered. She needs to be quarantined and tested for toxin exposure. As the guards approached, Sarah felt a familiar warmth in her mind. Lambda 7 was reaching out, even across this distance. In a flash, she saw what she needed to do. Wait, she said, forcing herself to sound calm. You're right. I haven't been sleeping well. I've been imagining things. Please, let me go to medical on my own. I don't want the other staff to see me like this. Wilson studied her for a moment, then nodded to the guards. Escort Dr. Chen to medical. But give her some dignity. The guards walked Sarah through the facility's white corridors, but instead of turning left toward medical, she suddenly turned right and ran. She heard shouts behind her, but she knew these halls better than anyone after her months of night shifts. She reached Lambda 7's containment unit just as alarms began blaring. The alien was pressed against the glass, her skin glowing with urgent patterns. Sarah quickly typed her access code into the control panel. Access DNID flashed the screen. No, 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 Sarah whispered, trying again. Behind her, she could hear boots on the floor. Suddenly, Lambda 7's glow became blindingly bright. The same light began showing on every screen, every monitor in the hallway. Images flooded not just Sarah's mind, but everyone's. Guards, scientists, staff members walking by. Everyone in range saw the truth about the chrysalids. Some people fell to their knees. Others stood frozen. The guards chasing Sarah stopped, their weapons lowered, as they saw visions of peaceful crystal cities and children torn from their families. Through their shared connection, Sarah felt Lambda 7's message. This was only the beginning. The chrysalis was coming, and with it, the chance to contact her people. But they needed to move fast. As chaos erupted through the facility, with some staff helping and others trying to restore order, Sarah knew she had started something that couldn't be stopped. The truth was out. Now she just had to keep Lambda 7 alive long enough for help to arrive. The next 6 hours in the facility felt like a war zone. Sarah and 3 other scientists who believed her had barricaded themselves in the specimen containment area. Dr. Roberts kept trying to override their security codes, but Sarah had scrambled the system just in time. The suppression drugs will wear off in about 4 hours, Sarah explained to her allies while checking Lambda 7's vital signs. The alien skin was already starting to shimmer with the first signs of metamorphosis. We just need to keep them out until then. Dr. Emily Martinez stepped forward, the same Dr. Martins who had supposedly quit months ago. In reality, she'd been working in a different department, gathering her own evidence about the chrysalids. I've sealed the ventilation system, Emily said, her fingers flying over a keyboard. They can't gas us out. But Sarah, she hesitated. Are you sure about this? Once she enters chrysalis form, there's no going back. The military. A loud bang on the doors interrupted her. Through the reinforced windows, they could see armed security gathering. Final warning, Dr. Hin. Wilson's voice boomed through the speakers. Surrender now, or we'll be forced to use extreme measures. You're endangering everyone in this facility. Sarah looked at Lambda 7, who was now hovering slightly above the floor of her enclosure, wings spreading wider than ever before. Through their mental link, she felt both fear and determination. "You know what they'll do to her," Sarah said quietly. "They'll dissect her, turn her into weapons. We have to give her this chance." Dr. Patel, their youngest ally, was monitoring global communications. "Sarah, you need to see this," he called from his station. "Our systems weren't the only ones Lambda 7 affected. People all over the facility recorded those visions on their phones. It's already hitting social media. #RileTruth is trending." Sarah felt a surge of hope, but it was cut short by another explosion at the doors. The security forces were trying to blast their way in. Lambda 7's glow was getting stronger. Her body was changing, becoming more crystalline. The other specimen containers in the room reflected her light, creating a dazzling display of colors. "The metamorphosis is starting early," Emily said, checking the readings. "Her brainwave patterns are off the charts." "Sarah, I think she's already broadcasting." Through their connection, Sarah saw fragments of Lambda 7's message shooting across space, images of Earth, of the facility, of humans who chose to help instead of hurt. The young alien was telling her people not just about her captivity, but about the humans who fought to free her. "They're almost through the door," Dr. Patel shouted. Sarah ran to Lambda 7's enclosure. The alien pressed her hand against the glass one last time, sharing a final message: gratitude and a warning to get back. "Everyone away from the containers," Sarah yelled, pulling her colleagues behind some equipment. The security forces finally breached the door just as Lambda 7's metamorphosis reached its peak. The entire room filled with blinding light. Through it, they could see her body transforming into a crystalline cocoon that sparkled like 1,000 stars. The armed men stopped in their tracks, weapons lowered, as the cocoon began to pulse with waves of telepathic energy. This time, no one in the facility could ignore the messages. Every human within range witnessed the same thing: a vast fleet of chrysalid ships already on their way to Earth. But they weren't coming for war. They were coming for truth, justice, and their children. Sarah looked at the amazed faces around her, guards, scientists, and fellow rebels alike, and knew that everything was about to change. Humanity's first real contact with an alien civilization wouldn't be marked by cages and weapons, but by the courage of those who chose to listen to a crying child. Now they just had to survive until the fleet arrived. The military arrived faster than anyone expected. Within an hour of Lambda 7's transformation, black helicopters surrounded the facility. Through the lab's reinforced windows, Sarah could see soldiers taking up positions outside. Lambda 7's crystalline cocoon floated in the center of the containment unit, pulsing with waves of blue-white light. Every pulse sent out more telepathic messages, not just to her people in space, but to everyone nearby. The soldiers outside, the news reporters gathering at the facility's gates, even people in the nearby town, all of them were seeing visions of the truth. "They're evacuating the other floors," Dr. Puddle reported, watching security feeds on his tablet. "But look at this." He turned the screen toward Sarah. On it, dozens of facility workers were refusing to leave, forming human chains in the corridors. Many were the same people who had ignored Lambda 7's cries for months. "They know the truth now," Emily said softly. "They can't pretend anymore." A new voice boomed through the facility's speakers. "This is Colo and El Hades of the United States military. We have the authorization to use LETAL-4C to contain anti-alien 38. All PERSONNEL must evacuate IMMEDA Eli." Sarah felt a wave of fear from Lambda 7's cocoon. The young alien could sense the weapons aimed at the building, enough firepower to destroy her before her people arrived. They're not going to wait, Sarah realized. They'll kill her and cover it up. She turned to her colleagues. "All of you should go. There's no reason for everyone to risk their lives." But Emily stepped forward, her face determined. "I ran away once when I discovered the truth. Never again. The others nodded in agreement. Suddenly, all the screens in the lab lit up with incoming video calls. News stations from around the world, government officials, even scientists from other countries, all demanding to know what was happening at Meridian facility. Dr. Patel's eyes widened. The facility's communications blackout just failed. Lambda 7. I think she's hacking our systems. Sarah felt another pulse of emotion from the cocoon. Not fear this time, but determination. On every screen, videos started playing. Security footage of experiments on Lambda 7. Proof of the military's lies. Evidence that had been hidden for months. She's not just calling her people, Sarah whispered. She's telling everyone. No more secrets. The soldiers burst into the lab with guns raised, but they stopped short at the sight of the floating crystal cocoon. Its light filled the room, and Sarah knew they were seeing what everyone else saw. The truth about who they were really protecting, and who they were really fighting. Colonel Hayes himself walked in, his face hard. Step away from the alien specimen. That's an order. But before anyone could move, something changed. Lambda 7's cocoon pulsed with the brightest light yet, and everyone in the room gasped as they saw the same vision. Massive ships entering the solar system, crossing the distance between stars in ways human science couldn't understand. The chrysalid fleet wasn't coming tomorrow or next week. They were already here. The colonel's radio crackled with urgent voices reporting unidentified objects appearing near the moon. The soldiers looked up at the ceiling, then at each other, their weapons lowering. In the middle of it all, Lambda 7's cocoon began to crack. Sarah stepped forward, putting herself between the soldiers and the containment unit. She wasn't afraid anymore. Colonel Hayes, she said clearly, you have two choices right now. You can be the man who started a war with an advanced alien civilization, or you can be the man who helped make first contact the right way. The colonel looked at his weapon, then at the videos still playing on every screen, and finally at the cocoon where a young alien child had been tortured under his government's orders. Slowly, he gave the order his conscience had been screaming all along. Stand down. The next 30 minutes changed human history forever. News helicopters circled the facility, broadcasting live as enormous chrysalid ships appeared in the sky above. They were beautiful, like giant crystals catching sunlight, spreading rainbow colors across the clouds. Inside the lab, Lambda 7's cocoon continued to crack. Each piece that fell away released pulses of light that filled the room. Sarah, the scientists, Colonel Hayes, and his soldiers all watched in amazement as a new form emerged from the crystal shell. Lambda 7 was no longer small like a child. She had grown to the size of an adult human. Her wings were huge and transparent like dragonfly wings, shimmering with all colors of light. Her skin glowed with patterns that seemed to tell stories in light. But most remarkable were her eyes. They held wisdom and knowledge that hadn't been there before. When she looked at Sarah, the connection between them felt stronger than ever. She's saying, "Thank you," Sarah translated for everyone in the room, tears running down her face. "And she wants us to know her real name. It's Ziria." Colonel Hayes stepped forward slowly, his hands raised to show he meant no harm. Can you tell her we're sorry? That I'm sorry?" Ziria turned her glowing eyes to him. The colonel gasped as images filled his mind, not of anger or revenge, but of understanding and hope. She showed him visions of how humans and chrysalids could work together, sharing knowledge and building a better future. Suddenly, Dr. Wilson burst into the lab with more soldiers. "Don't listen to it," he shouted. "This is all a trick. These creatures are weapons, nothing more." He raised a gun, aiming at Ziria. But before anyone could react, Wilson froze in place. Ziria's glow had intensified, and now everyone in the room could see what she saw. Wilson's memories of ordering experiments on captured chrysalid children, of hiding evidence of their intelligence, of threatening anyone who discovered the truth. "No more lies," Sarah said firmly. "No more treating people, human or alien, like they're nothing but tools. Through the lab's windows, they could see more chrysalid ships landing in the open fields around the facility. They moved like giant floating jewels, touching down so gently they didn't even bend the grass beneath them. Ziria spread her wings, and the container glass that had held her prisoner for so long simply dissolved into light. She floated forward, and everyone stepped back in awe. Everyone except Sarah, who stood her ground with a smile. The alien girl, now an alien woman, touched Sarah's forehead gently. In that moment, Sarah saw everything. Ziria's complete memories, her people's history, and their hopes for the future. The chrysalids had been watching Earth for years, waiting for humans to show they were ready for contact. It took the kindness of one human, listening to the cries of a scared child, to prove that humanity had hope. More chrysalids emerged from the landed ships, tall, glowing figures with crystalline wings. Among them was one who glowed brighter than the others. Through their connection, Sarah knew this was Ziria's mother. As mother and daughter reunited in a dance of light and color, Sarah felt tears of joy running down her face. Around her, soldiers lowered their weapons, scientists put down their tablets, and everyone, even those who had once seen chrysalids as nothing but test subjects, understood what they were really seeing. This wasn't an invasion. It wasn't even first contact anymore. This was the moment humanity grew up and learned there were better ways than fear and cages. Through their lasting connection, Ziria sent Sarah one last message. This was just the beginning. 1 week after the chrysalids arrived, the world had changed in ways nobody could have imagined. The Meridian Research Facility, once a place of secret experiments and hidden cruelty, had become the center of peaceful cooperation between humans and aliens. Sarah walked through the transformed corridors where she used to do her lonely night shifts. Now, instead of locked containers and scary warning signs, the halls were filled with light and color. Chrysalid scientists worked side by side with human researchers, sharing knowledge that would help both species. Dr. Chen called Dr. Patel, running up to her with an excited smile. You won't believe what the chrysalids just showed us. They're healing crystals. They can cure diseases we thought were impossible to treat. Sarah smiled, remembering how just days ago they had been fighting for their lives in these same halls. Now the facility's old security checkpoints had been turned into welcome centers for scientists from around the world. As she walked into what used to be Lambda 7's containment room, she found Ziria floating near the ceiling, teaching a group of human children about chrysalid light language. The children laughed in delight as they tried to copy the patterns with small light projectors the aliens had given them. The young ones learned so quickly, Ziria's voice echoed in Sarah's mind. The telepathic connection they shared had grown stronger, allowing them to talk easily now. They don't carry the fear that many adults do. Sarah nodded, watching the children play. Fear comes from not understanding. That's why what you did was so important. You made everyone understand. But not everything was perfect. Outside the facility, some people still protested against the aliens' presence. Dr. Wilson and several military officials were facing trials for their actions against the chrysalids. And every day, more evidence came out about other secret facilities around the world. Ziria floated down beside Sarah, her wings casting rainbow patterns on the walls. Mother wants to speak with us, she said telepathically. The council has made a decision. They walked together to the facility's main hall, now transformed into a meeting space. Ziria's mother, the chrysalid leader whose name translated to Star Song, waited for them. Other human leaders were there too, scientists, government officials, and military commanders who had chosen to help rather than fight. Sarah Chen. Starsong's voice echoed in everyone's minds. You did something no other human had done. You listened when our child cried. You acted when others looked away. Because of this, the Council has decided to share our greatest gift with humanity. Through their shared mental connection, Sarah saw images of incredible chrysalid technology, not weapons or tools of war, but healing crystals that could clean Earth's polluted air and water. Ships that could help humans explore the stars without damaging other worlds. Ways to grow food in places where nothing could grow before. But, Starsong continued, we will only share these things if humanity promises to use them wisely. We need humans who understand both worlds to help guide this process. She turned her glowing eyes to Sarah. Will you help us? Sarah looked around the room. At the human children learning alien light patterns, at the scientists working together to solve problems, at Ziria who had become not just an alien she saved, but a dear friend. She thought about her lonely night shifts that seemed so long ago, when she was the only one who would listen to an alien child's cry. Yes, Sarah said firmly. I'll help, but not alone. She gestured to Dr. Martinez, Dr. Patel, and all the others who had stood with her. We'll all help, because that's what humans do when we're at our best. We work together to build something better. Ziria's glow brightened with happiness, sending waves of joy through their mental link. Outside the facility windows, the sun was setting, making the chrysalid ships shine like new stars in the sky. The age of fear was ending. The age of understanding had begun. 1 year had passed since the day Sarah first heard Lambda 7's cries in the dark halls of Meridian Facility. Looking out from her new office window at the transformed research center, she could hardly believe how much had changed. Where there were once military checkpoints, beautiful crystal gardens now grew. Chrysalid children flew playfully through the air alongside human students who rode on small anti-gravity platforms, gifts from their alien friends. The old containment units had been turned into classrooms where both species learned from each other. Ambassador Chen called a familiar voice in her mind. Sarah turned to see Ziria floating in, her crystalline wings casting rainbow patterns across the room. Over the past year, she had grown even more beautiful, her light patterns now complex and elegant like her mother's. Just Sarah, she corrected with a smile. I'm still not used to the title. But you've earned it, Ziria replied, landing gracefully. The council meeting is about to start. Are you ready to show them what we've achieved? Together, they walked to the great crystal hall that had been built where the facility's security center used to be. Inside, human and chrysalid leaders gathered around a table made of living crystal that showed holographic images of Earth and the changes of the past year. Dr. Martinez, now the head of the New Earth Chrysalid Medical Exchange, stood up to present their results. The healing crystals have already cleaned 30% of Earth's most polluted areas, she reported. Diseases we thought incurable are being treated successfully. And this is just the beginning. Dr. Patel followed with his report on the new space program. Thanks to chrysalid technology, humans had already established their first research base on Mars. But more importantly, they had learned to do it without damaging the environment. When it was Sarah's turn to speak, she felt Ziria's encouraging presence in her mind. Their friendship had become a symbol of what was possible when fear was replaced with understanding. A year ago, Sarah began, I was just a night shift scientist who heard a child crying. Today, I stand before you not just as a human ambassador to the chrysalids, but as proof that one person choosing kindness over fear can change everything. She waved her hand over the crystal table, and it showed images of the new joint schools where human and chrysalid children learn together. We're not just sharing technology, she continued. We're sharing hope. Every child who learns to speak in light patterns, every chrysalid who learns human languages, builds a bridge between our worlds. The old facility director's trial had ended last month. Dr. Wilson and others who had hurt the chrysalids were facing justice. But instead of seeking revenge, the chrysalids had asked for something different, that the guilty humans work to heal the damage they had caused. As the meeting ended, Sarah and Ziria walked out to their favorite spot, a quiet garden where crystal flowers grew alongside earth roses. The sun was setting, making the chrysalid ships in orbit shine like new stars. Do you ever think about that night? Ziria asked. When you first really heard me? Sarah nodded, looking up at the sky where both human and chrysalid vessels now peacefully traveled between stars. I was so scared and alone. We both were, But look at us now. A group of children ran past them. Human kids wearing light pattern generators, playing tag with young chrysalids. Their laughter and the gentle chiming of chrysalid joy filled the air. The next generation won't know fear of differences, Ziria said softly. They'll grow up knowing we're all just people, no matter what we look like. Sarah felt tears in her eyes as she watched the children play. That's the real miracle, she said, not the technology or the healing crystals. The miracle is that we learn to listen to each other. Even when the voice crying out seems alien, it's still a voice asking to be heard. Above them, the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky. But now, when Sarah looked up, she didn't see the cold, empty space she once feared. She saw a universe full of possibilities, friendship and hope, all because someone stopped to listen to a crying child.